Welcome back to Up North at 4. We're continuing our How We Got Here series. Kay Kranz joins us yet again from Manitowish Waters. Kay, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited to talk about a topic that we haven't even touched on yet. So I'll let you take it away with Manitowish Waters' great history of barefoot water skiing.
Well, Dan, I'm really kind of excited to tell you about this time period in the 60s when barefoot skiing really becomes a hot item on the water. And by 1960, Wisconsin had formed a Wisconsin Water Ski Federation. So the state is really getting organized, and that brought people together to create new ideas about what to do with water skiing. And some young people from our club got involved in that federation. And I think that spurred some of the movement of our club towards looking at bigger ideas than just putting on the show every week. But let me go back a little bit and tell you about the background with barefoot water skiing. Now, think about the old days when if you've ever seen any antique water skis, how big they were, and you had slower boats. But in the late 40s and early 50s, boats are starting to go faster and faster, bigger and bigger motors, so you can do more things. There were two major water ski shows in the United States: Cypress Gardens, which we've all probably heard of, and Wisconsin had its own, the Tommy Bartlett Water Ski Show in Wisconsin Dells. And young people in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s are seeing people in these fantastic barefoot ski acts, and they're going, wow, I want to learn how to do that. So now enter Manitowish Waters. In the early 1960s, our team was young, and it was so great because it brought local kids and summer resident kids together in one place to form a ski show and have something to do on the lake, have somewhere where teenagers could get together. Well, those kids were dynamic, and they were given a whole lot of independent responsibility. We had adult advisors in the club, but besides getting a boat and motors, the kids were responsible for everything. So there were a group of athletes that said, hey, we want to do this barefooting. So they got into a challenge, and it was called the Buyer Barefoot Tournament. It was an in-club competition, but that spurred on lots and lots of practice, and the challenge was there to be the best barefooter in the club. So in 1963, that first tournament was held, and it was really cool because we had one girl in our club, Wendy Feiereisen. Her name was Tillman at the time. She says, I can do what the guys do. Well, that tournament had 10 entrants, all males except for Wendy. And Wendy took second place. She was quoted as saying, well, I don't think it's too shabby that a girl took second place in a field of 10. And she said, I couldn't tell you how much I love to beat those guys. And at that time, girls really weren't able to compete in much. There wasn't high school girls athletics like there were men. Anyway, she said that was one of the highlights of her life, was beating those guys in a barefoot tournament. She went on to be kind of a pioneer in barefoot water skiing for women in Wisconsin and really set the tide for that. Her son, Caleb Feiereisen, who unfortunately died at a very young age, went on with the legacy of becoming a world-class water skier, probably one of the best water skiers in the state of Wisconsin. So we had our in-house tournament. Well, then people got really excited about it and said, why don't we see if we can sponsor the first ever Wisconsin State Barefoot Tournament, 1964, Manitowish Waters, Wisconsin. It was 38 participants, and the old water ski tournaments were simply side-by-side skiing, two people behind the boat. The person who lasts the longest wins that run, and the best out of 3 runs gets you your score. Well, today barefoot tournaments are so different. They're so much more dynamic. You have to be able to do tricks. You have to be able to maybe jump barefoot, which I can't imagine. So it's much more intricate, but back in those days, it was pretty simple. And in that first tournament in 1964, the skiing skeeters from Manitowish Waters won that tournament and went on to win the next 3 state tournaments. Now, we had really good leaders in our club like Ted Ferris, Jerry Raiola, Jack Fireheisen, and Clark Wangard, who worked at the state level and ensured that we had that tournament in place until approximately 1978. And Manitowish Waters has gone on with the tradition of barefooting. By 1988, we had people like the great skier Brent McFarland competing in national meets. So that's kind of the story of barefoot water skiing in Manitowish Waters. But that first tournament was so cool because the DNR land gave us venison to make venison burgers to sell, to help make money to cover the costs. And we had a whole lot of town commitment, and those 38 people came in and we had a great time. And that tournament then got much bigger through the years. But I got to tell you another little story. Not only were we the first state barefoot championship, but we went on in 1967 to enter the first state water ski championship, water ski show championship in Wisconsin Rapids, and the Manitowish Waters skiing skeeters won. So I guess you could say Manitowish Waters is a magical historical place for water skiing. And you can still go water skiing on our beautiful lakes, only they have bigger boats and more powerful boats and booms, and kids can learn to walk barefoot very, very easily. But the thing that I really want you to understand is this tradition of water skiing is big in Wisconsin, and it's big in Manitowish Waters. And you can still go to a show at the Rest Lake Park in Manitowish Waters every Wednesday and Saturday at 7 o'clock and see the generational changes that have occurred in our water ski center. As a matter of fact, Manitowish Waters was named the barefoot capital of the Midwest at one time.
What an amazing history of Manitowish Waters. I like learning about this history. Then I can go to a show and really appreciate what went into getting it to this point. Kay Kranz, thank you as usual for coming on up North at 4.
Thank you, Dan.